Hello everyone, welcome to online session on quantity surveying and contracts management. In this session, I'll be explaining how to arrive at quantity estimation for a building by long wall short wall method. Here I have considered a small room of size 5 meter by 4 meter. As you can see here, the length of the room is 5 meters and width of the room is 4 meters. And the brick masonry, it's a brick masonry wall. The thickness of the wall is 0.3 meters. Let us see how to do the calculation for quantity, overall quantity of the building, that is the hall of size 5 meter by 4 meter, for the given details. As we can see here, there are two sections considered. One is section AB and the other section is CD, along the length and along the width. Section AB is along the length. Here, as we can see, the PCC is provided for a thickness of 0.3 meter and width of 0.9, and first course of foundation in, let us assume this everything is in BBM, burnt brick masonry. It's not in SSM. So the width of the first footing is again 0.6 meter and the depth is again 0.3 meters. The width of the second footing is 0.5 meter and depth is 0.3 meters. The plinth here is width of 0.4 meter with a depth of 0.6 meters. The thickness of the wall is 0.3 meters to a height of 3.5 meters. The same thing is replicated here also on the other side for the other wall. So we have along the width we also have section CD. The section of the wall remains same. The only change here we can observe is the length of the wall is 4 meters. So it is here in the figure, it is also mentioned the center to center distance between the walls. The center, that is the center of this wall, which is 0.3 meter divided by 2, and the center of this wall is 0.3 meter, that is 30 centimeter thick wall, divided by 2. So 0.3 by 2 and 0.3 by 2 on either side, 5 plus 0.3 by 2 on left hand side, and 5 plus 0.3 by 2 on right hand side. That totally we will get it as 5.3 meter center to center distance. Along the width direction also we have 4 meter as the length, that is the clear distance from inner face of the wall to the inner face of the wall on the other side. We have 4 meter as the distance. So if I include center to center distance, it will be 4 plus 0.3 by 2 plus 0.3 by 2 on either sides. So that will be 4.3 meter center to center. So for this particular hall, let us arrive at quantity of the quantity of each and every item, that is the foundation, excavation. So basically we have to start with excavation, then go with PCC concreting, then the first footing, then the second footing and plinth, and finally the superstructure, that is the wall above plinth level to a height of 3.5 meters. These are the quantities which we have to do the calculation for. So any project, if we start with the very first thing we have to do is the marking, and we have to go with the excavation. As in this case, if we can observe clearly, the center line, if I mark a center line, if I drop a center line for this section, if I try to drop a center line, let me mark a center line here. If I drop a center line, this center line remains same for wall as well as the plinth, as well as the first footing, second footing, and also for the PCC concreting. The same thing remains same for the center line, remains same for all the cases. Hence, the same center line can be considered just with multiplication of width. The variation in the width can be considered so that we can easily calculate the length as well as the width in every section. So let us see how to do with this. So let us start the calculation of first item, which is earthwork in excavation. So for which, let me go to AutoCAD. Here I have the plan. So this floor plan of 5 meter and 4 meter hall size, I have it here. The very first thing to start with is, let's say this is the natural ground level and I have to do the excavation for a width, for a certain width and depth. So what is this certain width and depth? Let me just check what is this width and depth. So here I have to start from ground on the ground level for an excavation from here to here. I cannot do the separate excavation for PCC and for the first footing and second footing, because though they are of variation in size, though they are varying in size, we cannot do separate excavation as in case of stepped footing or something like this, which is seen on the screen. We have to do the excavation all at once and then start filling the concrete, and then the first footing and then the second footing. So in order to do this excavation, earthwork in excavation, so the first thing what I have to do is, what is the length, which is nothing but along the length of the wall I have to do the excavation. This is, I here have 4 walls. Along the length of the wall I have to do the excavation. So starting from here till here, and starting from here till here, and starting from here to here, and finally starting from here to here. All the 4 sides have to do the excavation. So that will be my length. Because we are dealing with long wall and short wall method, I'll consider the longest wall as long wall and the shortest wall as short wall. So here, considering these 2 walls, I have 5-meter wall and 4-meter wall. I will be considering 5-meter length wall as the long wall and 4-meter length wall as the short wall. So since the section is also same and the foundation is also same, everything is symmetrical, I'll do the calculation for one item and I'll multiply the same for the other walls by number 2, so that it will be, I'll be getting total quantity. Similarly, I'll do the calculation for one item, that is one wall here on the right hand side or the left hand side, and same thing can be copied here also or multiplied with number 2. So let me start with long wall now. If I have to consider long wall, so I have to do the calculation for length, which is nothing but this length. I already know what is the center to center distance of length. So let me look at the plan view. So of the, if I just mark the center line as I showed you in the previous case, this is the center line, this is the center of the wall, this is also center of the plinth, first footing, second footing, and also PCC, and also for the excavation. So if I just measure what is the distance from here to here, because it is 30 centimeter wall as shown here, so the distance here is 0.3 meter, and the half of the distance is 0.15 on right hand side, and on left hand side it is 0.15. Similarly, from the center line, if I measure the right hand side of the plinth, it will be 0.2 meters on right side and 0.2 meters on left side, because the total width is 0.4. Similarly, for the first footing, it is 0.5 meters is the total width. It is divided into 2 halves, 0.25 and 0.25, and the, I mean, second footing, and the first footing is 0.3 and 0.3, total is 0.6. Earthwork in excavation as well as PCC, the total width is 0.9 meters, which is divided into 2 halves, 0.45 and 0.45. So now I know the length. I have to do the excavation for this total length here and here, considering the long wall method. So when I do the excavation for this length, I have to consider this as my total length. I also need to consider width and depth. So let me go back here. Let me switch here. So this is yeah. This is what is the first plan of foundation trench and foundation concrete. So why I am considering foundation is because the very first thing what we have to do is construction of the building starts from bottom to top, that is excavation, then the foundation, then superstructure, and finally finishing, right? So let me go very quick to the table of contents. What do we usually go on with the long wall and short wall method? So the first column is serial number, next is particular of items, number, that is if I have 2 numbers or 10 numbers of such walls, I can multiply with such numbers, length of each element, width of each element, height or depth of each element, total quantity. How do I arrive at total quantity? Is number into length into width or breadth multiplied by height or depth. So that gives me total quantity. Any explanations or remarks can be entered here, like how did we arrive at the length or any such things, we can do the calculations here. Now of course everything has to be in tabular columns in the form of table. So the very first quantity which we will calculate is earthwork in excavation for the foundations. So if this is the foundation which I have to do, as I told you, this is the total length. So the center to center distance is known. The center, I'll just draw the center line for this also. This is the center to center distance which I am measuring. Center to center distance is 5.3 meters, and the clear distance shown here is 5 meter. Because I'm not starting with BBM, that is burn brick masonry or the superstructure, I am starting with the foundation trench. Here also I am going to measure it again. The center to center distance is 5.3 meters. Now I can, let's start with long wall. There are 2 numbers. How many numbers are there? The long wall is of 2 numbers, 5 meter and 5 meter. Since there are 2 numbers, I have entered the number as 2. Now I need to consider the total length. What is the total length of excavation I'm going to make? So if I consider this particular wall, I'm just going to draw a rectangle here. I need to do the excavation for this length. The total length of excavation has to be done. What is this total length? Which is shown here. What is this total length is? I'm going to measure it from here to here, which I've got it as 6.2 meters. How did I get 6.2 meters? Is I know the center to center distance already, which is 5.3 meters. 5.3 meters is the center to center distance. And to the left hand side, I have half of the width, and to the right hand side, I have half of the width, which is shown in this plan here. So this is the center line, and I know the total width of the foundation excavation, which is 0.9 meter all around. So if I consider this here, this over here, this has the long wall, 5 meter length long wall, 5.3 meter center to center distance. The total width is 0.9 meter. So I need to do the excavation from here to here. So when this is the excavation which I have to do, what I have to do is I need to calculate the total length. So I know the center to center distance, which is 5.3 meters. As shown here, it is 5.3 meters. I have additional length here, or the additional width here, and additional width here. What is this width? 0.9 meter divided by 2 and 0.9 meter divided by 2. So total length will be 5.3 plus 0.9 divided by 2, 0.9 divided by 2. So that will be my total length, which is equal to 6.2 meters. Why did I consider two numbers? Is because I have one long wall of 5 meter length and another long wall of 5 meter length. Center to center distance are of course 5.3 meters. What is the width? Now, since I am doing the calculation for earthwork in excavation, the width of the foundation or the width of the excavation I should consider. What is the total width of excavation I am doing here? This is 0.9 meter. Total width of excavation I am doing is 0.9 meter. Next, what is the height or the quantity, height or depth of the excavation I'm going with? So since this is the natural ground level, from here I'm going with a depth of 0.9 meter. So I have to consider 0.9 as the height or depth of the excavation. The total quantity of excavation, that is from the natural ground level, what is the amount of soil I need to excavate so that I can place the foundation. I have two walls of length 6.2 meter, and width of excavation I need to make is 0.9 meter, and depth of excavation I need to make is 0.9 meter. Put together these things, that is the product of these things, we will get it as 10.04 meter cube. Length is in terms of meter, width is in terms of meter, height or depth is also in terms of meter. So meter multiplied all these things, we will get it as meter cube. So we have explanation here or the remarks. In the remarks column, what I can do is I can show the calculation of length as how did I arrive at this value of 6.2. We know the length as 5.3 meter plus 0.9. What is 0.9 here? So 5.3 is center to center distance, and half of the width here and half of the width here I have considered on both the sides. So that means I have considered total of 6.2 meters. Now let us assume that I have done the excavation for this as well as this. These two parts excavation is done, but I have not considered the short wall, which is this wall and this wall. Let me come over here in the plan. I've done the excavation for long wall and long wall over here, but I have not done the excavation for short wall over here and over here. I need to do the excavation because I've already considered the full length for the long wall. That is, this whole area has been excavated and this whole area has been excavated. When I consider for the short wall, if I just do the excavation for the remaining portion, that would be enough. But if we look at the center to center distance, which is 4.3 meter, I need not consider 4.3 meter length. I just need to consider the distance from here to here, which is showing as 3.4 meter. Let us see how to arrive at that value also. Now moving on to short walls. How many number of short walls are there? If I look at the plan also, there are only two numbers. 4 meter width wall, right? I mean the length of the wall is 4 meters. So now there are two such numbers, so I am going to indicate it as 2. because it is symmetrical and all the properties or the foundation, everything, each and every detail, whatever I'm going to consider is same in the earthwork excavation. I'm talking about earthwork excavation. The size of the foundation as well as depth of the, that is the width and depth of the foundation is same. I'm going to consider it as 2. Let us say that I have the width of foundation for this wall is separate and for this wall is separate. Let's say the width of the foundation for this wall is 0.9 meter and for this one it is 1 meter. Then I cannot do, I cannot consider the number as 2 here. Rather I have to do separately. I have to consider 1 here and do the separate calculation, maybe right wall and left wall. So that is the case. But here, as in this case, I have similar foundation, I mean same foundation, we can go with the same calculation and put the number as 2. Now let us do the calculation for the length. I already know that the foundation here, yes, the center line remains same for all the quantities, all the item of work like foundation, first footing, second footing, plinth, wall, everything is same. And here also I have the center line same. So I know center to center distance is 4.3 meters. Center to center distance is 4.3 meters. And I need to do the excavation for this particular case now. The center to center distance is marked over here as 4.3 meters. It is 4.3 meters, I know. But since I've already made the excavation of this portion over here, I need not consider this overlap area again. So in order to consider the length, I just have to consider the length from here to here. So how do I get that length? 4.3 meter is the total length minus, or I'm going to subtract this half width. Half of this width is already done. What is this half width? 0.9 divided by 2, and here also 0.9 divided by 2. So 4.3 minus 0.9 divided by 2 minus 0.9 divided by 2, I'll be getting the area of excavation which has to be done for this area and for this area also. So which I'm going to highlight it by some other color so that we can easily differentiate between the things. So now red color here is indicating the long wall and green color here is indicating the short wall. Now let me go back here. So numbers are 2. Now the length is 4.3 minus 0.9, which is nothing but 0.9 by 2 plus 0.9 by 2, where we are getting it as 3.4 meters. Now the width is 0.9 meters and the height or depth is 0.9 meter. I go back here and I'll show you the same excavation. Here also we are doing the width of the foundation is 0.9 meter, which is already shown. The depth from the natural ground level is 0.9 meter. So width and depth remain same as in case of long wall and short wall. So width is 0.9 and height is also 0.9. The total quantity, how do we arrive at total quantity, is the product of these things. 2 multiplied by 3.4 multiplied by 0.9 multiplied by 0.9. I'll be getting it as 5.51 meter cube. So in explanation, I can just show it as how did I arrive at the length value, which is 4.3 minus 0.9. So once I arrive at these values, I can do the total calculation, that is total amount of soil that I have already excavated is addition of these two things. Of course, long wall I have some quantity of excavation made. For short wall I have some quantity of excavation made. So put together, that is addition of these two values will give me total quantity of earthwork in excavation. Everything has to be in table. Once this is done, let us move on to the next quantity. I have done the excavation already. So the next step is to place the foundation, the PCC, right? The plain cement concrete for the placement of foundation, that is first footing and second footing. Why do we place the foundation in position is we get a even surface of so that the foundation can easily rest on the we'll get a flat area of the concrete and we can directly start on the concrete. Will not have any undulations as in case of soil. So now if we look at the figure shown here, The width of the foundation is 0.9 meter. As in case of excavation also, we have made it as 0.9 meter. It is going to be very easy in the calculation. Of course, here also everything remains same. Serial number, particular of items, number, length, width, height or depth, quantity, and explanation are remarks. So put it in a tabular column. Concrete in foundation. So long walls. Again, we have to do with the same thing. Long wall and short wall. There are two numbers. So there are two numbers of long walls. So let me consider the number as 2. The length. Now let us look at the length. What is the length here? And a foundation and foundation trench and foundation concrete are same, because if we look at the length, it is same. 5.3 meter is the center to center distance, and I'm going to place plain cement concrete all over this area. Whatever the area which I've excavated, for all over area, I'm going to place the foundation concrete. Hence, the width and the length is going to remain same, but not the thickness or the depth. So the depth of foundation was the depth of excavation was 0.9 meter, but the depth of PCC is just 0.3 meter. So length remains same, 6.2 meter, as in case of this also. This excavation also we have considered 6.2 meters. Width is 0.9 meter, but depth or height is only 0.3 meter, because the thickness of the concrete PCC is shown as 0.3 meters. Now the total quantity is product of these items, 3.35 meter cube. And explanation, how did we arrive at length is 5.3 meter is the center to center distance, plus 0.9 by 2 plus 0.9 by 2, which is nothing but here I have 5.3 plus 0.9 by 2 plus 0.9 by 2. 5.3 is the distance from center of this wall to center of this wall, which is from here to here, 5.3 meters. And I need to do the concreting on this end and this end also, which I have left it out already. I'm going to highlight it here. This portion I'm not considered because that is not a part of center line. That is the center to center distance. Similarly, here also I have missed this portion. I need to consider this, which is nothing but half of this width. This total width is 0.9 meter. As you can see, this total width is 0.9. 0.9 divided by 2 is 0.45, and here also 0.45. So 0.45 plus 0.45 will become 0.9. So that is what is indicated here. 5.3 plus 0.45 by 2 plus 0.45 by 2, which is 0.9. So the total length is 6.2 meters. Similarly, I also have to do the same thing for short walls here, because in the long wall I have already considered this portion or this area. I need not consider the additional area which is overlapping in the short wall direction. If we look at short wall direction, the center to center distance, that is from here to here, center of the wall to the center of the wall, or center of the uh, cement concrete or the PCC bed to the center of the PCC bed. The center of PCC bed over here to the center of the PCC bed over here, the distance is 4.3 meters. Now I have already done the concreting to this area. I need to do the, I need not consider this much area over here, and I need not consider this much area over here. This area and this area has to be avoided. So how do I avoid? I just have to subtract the length. How do I subtract the length? So 4.3 meter is the center to center distance. So 0.9 is the total width, and we can see here only half of the area is covered. So 0.9 by 2, 0.9 by 2, which I have to subtract here. As in case of long wall, we are just adding it, and in short wall, we are just deducting it. So short walls, we have two numbers of length, 3.4 meter. So 4.3 meter minus 0.4 by 2 minus 0.4 by 2, which is nothing but 3.4 meter. And the width is 0.9 meter. What is the width of the PCC bed I'm going to place? This is the width of the PCC bed. And what is the height or the depth or the thickness, which is 0.3 meters, and the total quantity is product of these things. And explanation, I can say it as 4.3 minus 0.9, which I'm going to get it as 3.4 meters. So the total quantity of concrete which is consumed for laying PCC bed is addition of these two values for long wall and for short wall, which is 5.18 meter cube. Everything has to be in a table. Now, as you can observe, we cannot always look into plan and arrive at these quantities. We also need the sectional details. If just we are given with a plan in any question or even in the exam or in the internals or in the field also, if we are just given with a plan and we are asked to arrive at quantity, it's not possible. We need each and every detailing as in this case. So in this case, the plan is given and section at AB and section at CD is also shown. So the section of both the walls, I mean all the four walls are shown, and the details of concrete, thickness, width, everything is shown. And as you're also aware, as you are following, I'm not just referring the plan alone, I'm referring the section AB and section CD, and only these things will be given, and these things we have to develop on our own looking at the sectional details which is given. Now let us move on to the next quantity, which is plan in plan of footing 1 and plan of footing 2. So once I am done with the excavation, and also if I have already laid the PCC, the next thing is to lay the first footing and the second footing and finally the plinth. So how to do this? So this is the plan of first footing. So the center to center distance remains same, because I'll go back here. This is the center line and this is the center line, and it is same for first footing, second footing, and also for plinth and also for superstructure BBM, the brick masonry. Now this center line, the distance between this center line and this center line is again same 5.3 meters. So drawn the same center line 5.3 meters length, and I've retained the center line length. And now as we can see, the width of the first footing is 0.6 meter, that is 0.3 meter on either side of the center line. So 0.3 meter on either side of the center line, which I'm going to show it here. So 0.3 meter on either side, 0.3 meter and 0.3 meter on either side of the footing. So that is the first footing. Now I need to do the calculation for this as well as for the second footing. Here the only change is the width of the foundation, which is the width of the footing, which is 0.5 meter. So on either side of the center line it will be 0.25 and 0.25, and for the plinth wall it is 0.4 meter total width, and the offset from center line is 0.2 meter on either side. Why I am specifying the offset on either side is because that is what we are going to consider in the length calculation. Let's see how it is done. The table remains same, the header of the table remains same. So first class brickwork in foundation and plinth. Now when we go with this, there are two things again. We have long wall and short wall, and again under long wall we have first footing, second footing, and plinth. We also have to consider for short wall. So if we look at here, so for long wall also we have first footing, second footing, and plinth. We have for short wall also first footing, second footing, and plinth. So let us start with long wall first. So under long wall, the first footing, let's see how many numbers are there. There are two long walls, and for both the long walls we have provided first course of footing, right? So hence I have entered the number as 2. The length is 5.9 meters. How did I arrive at 5.9 meter? Again I'm going to use the same thing. So this is the length of first course of footing which I have to lay. Yes, this is for the other wall. I'm going to highlight it again with red color. So this is the total width and length of the first course of footing which I have to lay. I know the center to center distance is 5.3 meters, and I need, when you look at this area, center to center distance is considered. Let's say it's a rectangle. I need the total area. When I have to calculate the total area of the rectangle, length multiplied by width, I'll get the total area. But when you look at the length here, I have considered only the center to center distance, not the end to end distance. If I want the end to end distance, I need to consider this remaining portion, which I'm going to highlight it here. This portion is not considered, and similarly this portion is not considered here. In order to consider these two areas, what I do, I just consider that in the length. So 5.3 meter is the center to center distance. Add this remaining portion and add this remaining portion. What is this width? This total width I know, which is 0.6 meter from the center line. So this half is 0.3 meter and this half is 0.3 meter. So total length is 5.3 plus 0.3 plus 0.3, which is nothing but 0.6 by 2 and 0.6 by 2. So 5.9 is the total length. 5.3 plus 0.6 by 2 plus 0.6 by 2, I'll be getting it as 5.9 meters. So width of the foundation of first course, that is the footing first course, is 0.6 meters. So which I have indicated here. Next is, let us see, yes, here as shown here, the width is 0.6 meters. And what is the depth of first footing? We have to be very careful in considering the width and the depth, because most of the times the length may remain same or it may change with some values, but the width and the depth is of course changing. Of course, the length also has changed compared to the previous case. The depth here is the depth of the item which we are dealing with. It's not the depth of the wall, or it's not the depth of the excavation. It's the depth of the first footing. So what is the depth of the first footing? It is 0.3 meter, which is shown here. So 0.3 meter should be the depth or the height of the first footing. Next, the total quantity is product of these things. So I've got it as 2.13 meter cube. Now in the explanation or the remarks column, what I can say, I can show how did I arrive at this value of 5.9 meters. So 5.3 is the center to center distance. 0.3 by 2 plus 0.3 by 2, which is 0.6 meter on either sides of the long wall. So I get it as 5.9 meter. Similarly, let me do the same thing for second course, which is the second footing. In the second footing, there are two number of walls again. So the numbers are 2. I'm doing for 2 long walls. So be careful. This number indicates the number of long walls you are going to provide the second footing for. So this is number 2 again. And the length, let us calculate what is the length. So now in order to calculate the length, I have to separately draw the plan of second footing. I have retained the center line. And I'm going to take offset of 0.25 meter on either side, so that I'll be totally getting, let me erase this. I know this is the center line, and the total width here shown is 0.5 meter as the width of the second course of footing. So I'm going to take 0.25 meter as the offset on both the sides of center line, so by which I'll be getting the total width as 0.5 meter. This is a plan view. So now again, as I told you, as discussed in the previous case, the center to center distance is 5.3 meter. I'm just going to mark a rectangle here now. I marked a rectangle here. I marked a rectangle, and I'm going to highlight it by red color, or indicate it by red color. Now I just need to calculate the area of this rectangle. How to calculate the area of this rectangle? 5.3 meter is the center to center distance, but I want end to end distance, total length multiplied by total width. But here I don't have the total length. How to calculate the total length? Center to center distance known here is 5.3 meter, but I want the total length. The total length can be calculated by considering this half width over here and half width over here. So 5.3 plus 0.5 by 2 over here, 0.5 by 2 over here. So the total length will be 5.8 meters. So 5.3 plus 0.5 will be 5.8 meters. And width of the first footing is 0.5 meter. Width of the first footing is 0.5 meter. And depth of the first footing, let's check here. The width is given as 0.5 and the depth is 0.3 meters. So the depth is also 0.3 meters. Now the total quantity is arrived by considering the product of these things. And of course, the length calculation can be shown in the explanation. 5.3 plus 0.5 by 2 plus 0.5 by 2, which is 0.5. Total length is 5.8 meters. Similarly, the plinth wall. So plinth wall, the total number of long walls are 2 walls. This is 5 meter length wall and this is 5 meter length wall. So total numbers are 2 numbers. So this is 2 numbers. The length I have to do the calculation. So let me go over here. The plinth. So in order to do the calculation, center to center distance is 5.3 meter. So I need to do the calculation for the total area of this rectangle, which I'm going to indicate or highlight it in red color. So in order to calculate the total length, which I don't have here as of now, I just have the center to center distance 5.3 plus this portion is 0.4 by 2 and this portion is 0.4 by 2. How do I know? Here I have the width as 0.4. Here also I have the width as 0.4. The width of the plinth. So 0 0.4 by 2 plus 5.3 plus 0 0.4 by will give me the total length, so which is 5.7 meter. And width of the first foundation, let me go back here, width of the plinth is 0.4 meter. Here you can observe 0.4 meter as the width, and depth or height of plinth is 0.6 meter. 0.6 meter is the height or depth, so which is 0.6 meter, and total quantity is the product of these things, which is equal to 2.74 meter. We can show in the explanation as how did we arrive at the length value of 5.7. Now this is not the end for the total amount of foundation, including the first footing, second footing and plinth wall. Why? Is because I cannot calculate the total value here itself, because whatever I have done is only for long walls. I have not done any calculations for short wall yet. So I have to do it and then calculate the total. Yes, here also we can arrive at a total quantity of long walls only, but not for the total quantity for both long wall and short wall. Let's do the calculation for short wall also and then calculate the total value. Now it remains same, the header of the table. So first class brickwork in foundation and plinth. So short walls, the first footing, there are two numbers. I'll go back here. So this is the short wall and this is the short wall. So of length 4 meter, we know. I'm talking about only the walls, not the first footing and second footing. The width of the first footing is 0.6, second footing is 0.5, and the plinth is 0.4 meter. The depth is 0.3, 0.3 and 0.6 respectively. So which is as same as in case of long walls. So what I have to consider is the width depth is going to remain same as in case of long wall, but we should be careful in the calculation of length. So the plan of first footing is already here, and we are already done with the calculation of long wall. So let me do the calculation for short wall now. Now the one indicated in green color is the portion where I have to go with the first layer of footing. But if we look at the center to center distance, which is shown as 4.3 meters, but I need not do or lay the first layer over here because I've already laid it. So the one indicating in red color is the portion which is already constructed, or it is already laid. The foundation is already laid for the first footing, first course of footing. But here when we look at the center to center distance, this portion is overlapping. So what I have to do, I have to deduct. So I need to consider length and width of this rectangle only. But when I consider the length 4.3 meter, then 4.3 into the width is 0.6. I'm going to overlap this portion which is already done. So I need to deduct some amount of length. What is that value? Which is 4.3 minus of this portion, which is 0.6 divided by 2, which is 0.3 on top, and also at bottom, which is 0.3, 0.6 by 2. So the total length will be 4.3 minus 0.3 by 2, 0.6 by 2, and 0.6 by 2, which will get it as 3.7 meters. The width of the first footing is, let's look at here. The width of the first footing is given as 0.6 meter and depth is given as 0.3 meters. So width is 0.6 and the depth is 0.3 meter, and the total quantity is 1.33 meter cube. So how did we arrive at this value? Is product of these things, we'll get it as 1.33 meter cube. Explanation for how did we arrive at the length. 4.3 minus 0.6 by 2 minus 0.6 by 2 will get it as 3.7 meter. The same thing has to be carried out for second footing. So the numbers are 2, and let me just do it very quick here. So I need to do the calculation for this wall, this footing and this footing, which is indicated in green color now, and I need to calculate the length, but here it is showing 0.3 meter as center to center distance, but I don't want center to center distance here, for which I'm going to deduct this half over here and this half over here. So which is 0.5 by 2 and 0.5 by 2, 4.3 minus 0.5 by 2 and 0.5 by 2. So I'll be getting it as 3.8 meters. The width of the foundation of the second layer is 0.5 meters and the depth is 0.5 meters and the depth is 0.3 meters, as you can observe here, 0.3 meter, and the total quantity is product of these things, we get it as 1.14 meter cube. And we can in the explanation show how did we arrive at this length value. Similarly, the last value is length wall. Since I have two number of walls, I'm going to enter the number as 2, and the length is 3.9 meter. How did we arrive at 3.9 meter? Let's check over here. Plan of plinth. So 4.3 meter is the total distance, that is the center to center distance is 4.3 meters. I just want the area to be considered from over here to here, because I've already, the one indicating in red color shows the area of footing which is already been constructed. The remaining portion only has to be constructed. Since there are overlaps happening, what I have to do, I have to do the deduction. 4.3 minus 0.4 by 2 minus 0.4 by 2. I'll be getting it as 3.9 meter. And width of the plinth is 0.4 meter, which is shown here. Width of the plinth is 0.4 meter, which is shown here in the section CD, which is 0.4. And depth is 0.6 meter. 0.6 meter is the depth height of plinth, and the total quantity is arrived by considering the product of these things, and in the calculations we can show as what is the, or how did we arrive at this value of uh, length of plinth. So you can observe it kept on increasing, and 3.7, 3.8, 3.9 is the total length which is we've got, which is shown in the explanation here. Now once we have done the calculation for short wall also, that is for the foundation, brickwork in foundation for plinth as well as the first course and second course, for both long walls and short walls, by considering the previous slide and this slide, I can now arrive at the total quantity. How do I arrive at total quantity? Is total quantity for of first footing, second footing, and plinth in the long walls, and the same thing here in the short walls will give us the total quantity as 10.95 meter cube of first class brickwork in foundation has to be considered. Once this is done, put everything in table form. And next, last step, which is first class brickwork in lime mortar in superstructure. So let's see the last part, how it is done. So it is just the calculation for this portion, the walls. Now the excavation is made, PCC is also done, PCC is laid, the first footing, the second footing, and the plinth is also laid. The next one is, of course, we will be providing DPC, damp proof course, but in this particular problem, no mention of DPC is done. Let's only concentrate on how to be, it's a simple problem, how do we do the calculations for this, these things alone. So let's concentrate or move on to the next part, which is the superstructure. In the superstructure part, we have the main wall. So long walls, there are two numbers. This is one number and this is two number. We have two such numbers. Let's calculate what is the center to center distance, I mean length of the wall. So if I look at this plan now, I have drawn plan of superstructure wall. So I have drawn this center line, and I have taken 0.15 offset on either side, so that I'll be getting 0.3 meter as the thickness of the wall, which is shown in the figure already. So 0.3 meter is the length of 0.3 meter is the thickness of the wall. So what I have to do now is just consider the construction of this wall. Let us assume I have constructed this wall already, and I'm going to construct this wall as well, which is of length. This value from here to here is the total length, but I know only the center to center distance. 5.3 meter is the center to center distance, which is already shown in the figure here. 5.3 meter is shown in the figure, but in order to construct the wall, I cannot do from center line to center line. It has to be outer edge to the outer edge. I need the distance from outer edge to the outer edge. So how to calculate that? 5.3 meter is the total length, center to center distance. So here I'm missing this length or this width, which is nothing but 0.3 by 2, and here also 0.3 by 2. So the total length will be 5.3 plus 0.3 by 2 plus 0.3 by 2, which is 5.6 meter. And width of what? Width of the one which we are dealing with, width of the item or the item or the quantity which we are calculating as of now. So which is superstructure, the width of the wall is 0.3 meters, and the height is very important here. When we look at the section, we can get to know what is the height. Height is mentioned as 3.5 meters, above the plinth level. So 3.5 meter is the height or the depth. So total quantity can be calculated as the product of these things, 11.76, and the explanation for the calculation or the remarks for the calculation of length can be shown here. So similarly, we also have to calculate the same thing for short walls. Short walls, we have center to center distance as 4 meters. I'm going to indicate here in the green color. So since I've already constructed the long wall, the only thing remaining is short wall. I need to construct or consider the length only to this much area, not the center to center distance. So 4.3 is the center to center distance. Deduct 0.3 by 2 on this side and 0.3 by 2 on the other side as well. So we will be getting it as two number of walls are there. This is one wall and this is the other wall. And the length is 4 meters because 4.3 is center to center distance. 4.3 minus of 0.3 by 2 minus of 0.3 by 2, we will be getting it as 4 meters. And the width of the wall is of course 0.3 meters, which is shown here also, 0.3 meters. And height is again 3.5 meter. Height or depth of the wall is 3.5 meter. Total quantity can be arrived at by considering the product of these values, and in the explanation part we can show the calculation of length as how did we arrive at this value. So the total quantity of brickwork in superstructure can be calculated by adding these two quantities of long wall and short wall, which is 20.16 meter cube. So put a table, and that's the end of the calculation. So this gives us some idea or some way or the method of calculating the long wall short wall method. By considering the long wall short wall method, one can do the calculation of quantities required for foundation, first footing, second footing, plinth and superstructure. It's a simple problem. We have missed out so many things because no much data is mentioned here. We can look at here, there might be, we can go with DPC, we can go with flooring, there will be a roof slab, there will be lintel, windows, door openings, everything has to be considered. Since this is the initial stage of understanding the concepts of long wall short wall method, we have considered only 4 items or 4 quantities which has to be arrived at. So we have done the calculations of these things. In the furthermore classes, we'll also look at the calculation of RCC roofs and the deductions to be made in the walls, because we cannot just construct a wall. We always will have a door and windows and opening for the ventilation. So these things also has to be considered. When I provide a door over here, let's say I have provided a door over here, I'm not going to construct any wall over there. So if I just say the total quantity is some value without doing any deduction for the wall, that would be a wrong value. So we also have to do the deductions for openings, and we also have to calculate the things for lintels, chedjas, so many things, lofts. So we'll look at those things in detail in the furthermore classes. So that is the end of the session. Thank you all.